Hey, here we are, day 28 of our journey together. We still got another two functional operational days. So kind of Monday and Tuesday of the week ahead, we've still got new exercises, new missions to come. Okay. But today I wanted to use my truth bomb to, I guess, go over some of the ground that we've been going over during this last week. So this week really has been mostly about social, right? About social connection, social protection, social aikido, and even the kind of the skill versus will. We've been applying that really to how you're communicating with other people. Because as I've already said, the biggest challenges we face are social, right? Other than our immediate health, other than our immediate safety, as in that car might hit me, that I might fall off this mountain or whatever it happens to be, really the dramas that come into our life that causes the greatest anxiety and threat and stress and overwhelm and frustration, they're all social issues. In other words, they all belong in the realms of the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex. Okay, so that makes it really, really interesting, but in many respects, very simple to address. Now, when I say simple, I'm not saying it's easy, right? Like, what I want to be really, really clear about is as I share and teach this stuff, it's not like I don't get into social friction within and without my family, right? Kind of, it's not like I don't snap at my wife occasionally or say something off color to one of my kids or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm not coming at this from a holier than thou place. But what I will say is that once you understand what is going on, once you understand that it's ACC and you understand what the ACC actually wants, you bounce back from those kind of shitty episodes really, really quickly. You don't stay. Well, there's several things that happen. One, they happen less frequently. Two, when they happen less intensively. Like the flare up is not this big; it's a smaller flare up. And three, you recover from them more quickly. In other words, you don't sulk and pout and moan and whinge and whine for an entire week over a little argument you had. Kind of, you sulk and pout and whinge and moan and whine and all the rest of it. But maybe it's over in a couple of hours or even a couple of minutes, because you actually understand what is needed to resolve the situation, right? And so what I want you to do is be a bit kind, be a bit compassionate, and also be a bit skillful with yourself in the application of this stuff, and not expect like, oh, well, Dax taught me this social aikido stuff, tried it, didn't work, fuck it, I'm throwing it out, right? This isn't how it works. And you know this because you're a coach, right? If you were applying any of this to any of your clients, you would be saying, come on, you've got to give it time. You've got to build this up. You've got to practice the skill. The tendency as you're applying it to yourself is to get frustrated really, really quickly, right? So don't do that. Keep coming back to what you've learned here. Remember, you're in the process of learning it. This isn't the same as mastering it just yet. This is a new skill, a new set of skill acquisition. And that skill is actually improved by attention, intention, repetition. So it's kind of going back through the same processes. But the more you do that, and the more you do that with an open and curious mind, the more impactful this is going to be, and the faster you're going to start to see the benefits. So look, today's truth bomb, in keeping with all of that social stuff, today's truth bomb is that your adversary isn't the other person, right? And it's really, really hard to embrace, right? You've just had an argument with your partner. You've just had an argument with a colleague. You've just had an argument with your boss or whatever, right? But the adversary isn't the other person. And this is a really important kind of truth bomb for you to start to embrace. The adversary isn't the other person. The adversary is the situation. Now, fair enough, the other person may be a big contributor in making that situation happen. But understand that if you're in combat with a person, the person is nearly always going to go into fight, flight, freeze. If you come at this from the perspective of it's our job together to try and create a better situation, is very different. And I'm not just splitting hairs, right? You can solve the situation, but you can't solve a person. See, if you make a person the problem, then that problem becomes highly personal, right, to the individual. If you make a person the problem, that problem becomes highly personal. So what we want to do is start to get to the point where actually we're getting very, very clear that it's the situation that needs solving. The situation is the problem. The situation is the challenge. The situation is the obstacle, right? And of course, the other person is involved in that, but it won't just reframe it there to begin with. The next thing to understand is that very often, if it seems like the other person is the problem, it's because of their beliefs, right? And here's the challenge with this, because the beliefs that a person holds always make sense to them as long as they're still in the same environment that those beliefs were either created in or reinforced in or accepted in, right? So I created my environment in the home. I act a certain way in my home. I walk out the door and I'm like polite and friendly and kind and loving and everything. Oh, Dax is so amazing. And yet I come home and I scream and shout at my kids, scream and shout at my wife, and become a complete all-round bad guy and bastard, right? Well, it may be that, kind of I've gotten used to, and it may have been semi-accepted that actually, that's in this environment, people accept that. When I go out, they don't accept that, right? So just understand that, right? So beliefs always make sense to the believer as long as they're in the environment that the belief was created in, the belief was reinforced in, or the belief was accepted in by others, right? Again, if I use another example, swearing, I still swear, but swearing in every other sentence or every sentence, acting aggressively, being really, really direct was really acceptable in the military. In fact, kind of the more you were like that, the more you were kind of effing and blinding and dropping F-bombs and kind of being aggressive and saying, really aggressive things to people, they're actually more respected. It's kind of like the military saw that as being more manly. And obviously the military wants manly men, right? So that was acceptable there. When you then move to a civilian job and you behave like a soldier in your civilian job in the supermarket or in an office place, and you start swearing at every single sentence and you pick up the phone and are really direct and aggressive, not so much, right? So just bear that in mind. Behaviors make sense to the believer as long as they are in the environment that the kind of the belief was created in, the belief was reinforced in, and the belief was accepted by others in. So if you really, really want to have an impact, if you really want to embrace this idea that the person isn't the adversary, the person isn't the problem, but the situation is, then you've got a choice. You either change the environment, right? Like literally change the environment, go from here to somewhere else. You change the way your current environment is set up. You change how you interact with the environment. You change how you interact with the belief within that environment. You start having conversations about kind of why that might not be the best idea, for example, right? And you change how you interact with the belief. Remember, beliefs are part of environment one. Remember, what's going on in your head is environment one. Your naked self is environment two. Your kind of projected self is environment three, and so on and so forth, right? So environment one, that's still an environment, the beliefs. We never impact a person's belief by telling them they're wrong. We impact the person's belief by helping them to actually see that maybe there are some areas of doubt. Maybe it's not as clear. Maybe it's not as kind of straight cut and applicable to absolutely everything, right? And I've given you examples throughout this program about how we bring the doubt as opposed to come from a place of certainty. So this is where curiosity and Aikido come back into it again, right? And so just understanding, a couple of people have questioned, is it, they felt like, well, does that mean like capitulation or being super, super softly to everybody and never really getting to the point? And you can be very, very curious about stuff and be direct and to the point, right? And you can also use your Aikido techniques and circle around things, but still be to the point, right? You can meet the thing that's coming at you head on, and you can blend and you can harmonize with that. So this is where it all starts together, right? But it starts to come together. But the main thing that I want you to take away from this truth bomb today is that if you take away the idea that the other person is the adversary and it's the circumstances, you yourself stop acting like a person who needs to put in direct kind of straight on the chin strikes, right? You're the person who also stops being combative. So there's a big benefit here. And as you change your behavior in the environment, remember, if you've always behaved a certain way and you've been overly blunt, overly directive, overly reactive, right? And to use the language I use all the time, unskillful. If you've been being unskillful, you are probably bringing about unskillfulness in the other person, right? And it's not that you are the problem. It's not that they are the problem. It's that you together create a situation that is a problem. And that's how I want you to really start thinking about this as you move forward. Okay, so well done. You finished 28 days with me, 4 weeks so far. We've still got a couple of days. We've got a couple of nice little missions coming up again. Kind of just stick with this process. But this is a big idea that I really want to kind of be sponsored in your mind as you move forward. Is that the adversary is not the person, it's the circumstance, the situation, right? And that beliefs will basically always be maintained as long as the person is either in or feels that they're in the same environment, right? Beliefs are only environment relative unless we make them specific to different environments. But most people have a tendency just to carry their beliefs blindly. And as you found out through this program, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more uncovering. I just want to speak to one more thing, which is a sense of repetition and frustration and all that kind of stuff, right? If you're looking very often you go through a program like this and there's a tendency to want to move on and move on and move on to different topics. And it can feel like there's a lot of sameness. That sameness is there by design, not by accident. Okay, if I've asked you the same thing or seemingly the same thing 10 times, don't think it's because I don't realize I've asked you the same thing 10 times. I've asked you the same thing 10 times because I wanted you to hear yourself give the answer 10 times. And I wanted you to hear yourself give slightly different variations of the answer. And this is how the process of neuroassociation works, right? We keep connecting the dots and connecting the dots and connecting the dots until we get this 360-degree perspective of our idea. And suddenly it doesn't feel new anymore. And suddenly it doesn't feel awkward anymore. Suddenly it's just the way things are. Like that's how things are. That's what I believe, and that's all I've got to say on the matter, right? And that's what this program is designed to bring you to have some of these realizations where even if you don't have a full 360 degrees yet, you've got a much wider and much more, much clearer perspective on what's really going on in your life. All right, guys, that's it from me. I will see you again tomorrow. Have a fantastic, fantastic weekend. Maybe I'll even get out of this.